This is Behind the Sabre, a student-run podcast that shows the real family at Benedictine College Preparatory.
Welcome to Behind the Sabre, a student-run podcast production where we explore the many unique lives at Benedictine College Preparatory. My name is Mieszko Schoenborn, and I'm your host on today's episode. Today, we're featuring Lane Ford.
How's it going?
Bravo Company Commander and Distinguished Cadet. And today, we'll be diving into his journey at Benedictine. So let's jump right into it. Lane, why Benedictine?
That's a really good question. Why Benedictine? When I was looking for my high school to go to, I was going up and down the East Coast, kind of looking at a few different ones. I was traveling to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, some of Virginia, down to Florida.
Yeah.
But none of them really clicked. But I drove into Benedictine for the first time. First thing I noticed was just the campus itself, stunning. And then I get here, and before Benedictine, I was homeschooled my whole life, so never had that school experience. Never had I didn't really know what to expect, but I got here, and one of the first things I noticed was how it felt like I'd already been going here. Especially a bunch of the older guys. They brought me in under their wing. Mm-hmm. It made it feel like I already went to the school, and so that's one thing I noticed was the brotherhood. It brought, and definitely. I'm sure that also to my parents, it probably made them feel, like, hey, this is a good place for him to be. He's already, they're already bringing him in, making him feel like he's part of the program. So I think that was a big reason why Benedictine was the brotherhood.
Okay, and I understand, you're a pretty good wrestler. Did wrestling play a role in why you chose Benedictine?
I knew we were a pretty stacked wrestling team. That was, one of the reasons I was looking at a few different high schools. Yeah. But it was definitely was not the deciding factor. I think it was more so the school itself rather than, the wrestling program. Yeah.
So you yourself, you're ranked top 5 nationally for your wrestling. And can you just describe your process from freshman year where you wrestled in the 113 weight class to this year where you're going to be wrestling 190? You almost gained 100 pounds. Yeah. That's crazy in less than 3 years. So can you just tell us what gave you the power to do all that? Yeah,
definitely. It was. I was a little bit tired being a small guy, walking around. 113 pound me is a lot different than 190 pound me.
Yeah, you're a new man.
Yeah, totally different. And one of the things was I was just determined. I told myself, I want to get big. I want to start, get into new territories of heavier weights. And the start of that actually was Coach Belviso, our old weight room coach.
I remember him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But he actually started giving me diet plans, workout plans, and then ever since then I kind of branched off and then started, implementing what he told me into my own thing, where each year I would, after wrestling season, I would hit the weight room, I would, eat, and, the biggest thing is picking up the fork. You just gotta, like it or not, you just gotta eat, man. And so for a few years I was just, in the weight room wrestling after season, same thing, eating and wrestling.
Just a grind.
Just kept on doing that, kept your nose to the grindstone until wrestling season, and then everything, resets.
Yeah, and we're actually heading into wrestling season, and I think this past week was the first week of practice, but, explain, we still got work to do this season, but explain, how special is it for you to have accomplished what you've done? You're a 2-time state champion, and you've committed to Wyoming to continue your wrestling career.
Yes, sir. It feels great. I definitely want, to thank and appreciate all the coaches I've had and still have now. Even all the way up through elementary school, my first coach, Coach Brown, he taught me, everything I knew in the beginning, advancing all the way up to Coach Shost and, countless others in between. So it's been something I've been able to appreciate myself, but something where I can kind of humble myself and know that I couldn't do without any of my help. Yeah. Especially my parents too, bringing me out, traveling across the country, going to different tournaments and practices. None of it would even be close to enough as possible. And especially, having God's help and guide me in all directions of my life. Yeah. I couldn't do without any of my supporters.
And would you say your parents are your biggest supporters?
My parents and also the people I live with now, the Folds, they're also on the wrestling team. Shout out to y'all. Yeah. Also, I've spent a little bit of time with you and the
That's true. Over the summer, you spent a few weeks together.
I've had enough support where it's made everything very nice. I'm very appreciative for it.
Yeah, and you're living with different families, cadet families here in Richmond because you grew up in Madison County, which is almost 2 hours away, and your family still lives there. So explain, you come all this way to go to Benedictine, and that's something special. And how is that like? How has been adapting to this city life compared to like a country life? How has that been for you?
It's totally different. I'll be honest. I think I've said before, the county I'm from, Madison County, where there's literally more cows than there are people in that town. So it's like, it's totally different from Richmond, where it's, concrete jungles and lots more people, definitely, great people too. It hasn't been the easiest thing, especially moving from, like I said, all outdoors mountains to, tall buildings, highways and all. So it wasn't easy at first, you learn a happy medium where I'm blessed enough where it's only about an hour 45 hours away, where I can drive back and forth between home and school when I need to. So it's been really good for me though to experience both Richmond and my hometown Madison, where I've been able to find out a lot about myself and really grow as a person. Definitely become a lot more independent. Again, with the help of a lot of other people, being able to go here in Richmond and go to school here. I spent last summer, I spent here as well. I didn't even go home during the summer. So I've been able to, really mature as a person as well, kind of being on my own, with the support of others, and as well as appreciate, my home place not being too far away.
Yeah, and you mentioned maturing as a person, and I was like, if you could touch on how do you think Benedictine has, improved you as a man through the 4 years, or going to be 4 years until you graduate. How do you think you've improved as a person and someone who achieves great things through conscious discipline and achievement?
Right. It's definitely the biggest thing. I definitely think it taught me was discipline. Yeah. Obviously the school here isn't the easiest.
Freshman year definitely brings a.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Through the orientation, you learn your way to be a cadet, and that's something I'm proud to say.
That's true.
It's something that, again, you keep your nose to the grindstone and keep on pushing through. It teaches you to persevere through hard times too, and also, integrity is another big one we focus on.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing when no one's looking, and that's one thing I've noticed has taught me here. Whether it's a piece of trash on the ground, or, just laying out a helping hand, it's nice to be able to help somebody in this place to, like I said, give you the discipline to learn that. And that's one thing I've loved Benedictine teaching me, and then again to be able to be independent. These teachers, they don't give you too much slack around here, so you gotta learn to carry your own weight sometimes. And Coach Yost, he always tells us, it's not you that have to reach out, or the parents that have to reach out to me, it's you. Don't get your mom and dad to call me if you're missing practice. That's on you. And that's one thing I think Benedictine is very focused on, is teaching a boy to become a man. And that's one thing I've loved about it.
And one of the milestones when that transition happens is the weekend after freshman orientation. So tell us one of your favorite memories or a story that from freshman orientation where you specifically remember where something inside of you changed and you felt a new man.
So I would say it wasn't easy throughout the beginning of the week. We're doing PT, we're waking up 3 times a night, middle of the night, getting a little rest. And really, it's what you make out of it. Some people are looking at it like, oh, this sucks, I can't do this, they're complaining. Where you can also look at it as like, okay, we're gonna get through this, it's temporary. I'm gonna get through it with my buddies. I'm gonna drag some people along with me to try, help push them through. And so it's teaches you how to, not be accountable but for yourself, but for others, teach you how to lead. And I think one of my favorite moments from that was we went on this blindfolded march throughout the night, so we couldn't see anything. We were all holding on to each other like an Indian run, and we finally finished the hike, and they have this fire sitting there, and all the seniors are there, all your buddies are there. We're all beat up, we're tired, and they have this fire going. We can finally relax, drink all our water and all, and have all our snacks, and we're just sitting there enjoying the moment. And playing Dixieland Delight, and just having, it felt like a really true Benedictine moment where I felt really connected with my brothers, and that's when I knew that I was like, this is a place for me.
And that, for myself, freshman orientation was definitely like one of the greatest bonding experiences with my cadet brothers that I've ever lived through, and I'm definitely appreciative and grateful for that.
100%.
All right, so Lane, I got a question for you. I've heard your sister's a big-time wrestler. So is this true? Is she?
It is true. She for high school, just like me before high school, she was homeschooled her whole life. We grew up, wrestling. So it's actually funny. I started wrestling about 5 years old. Wrestled for a few years, and my dad, he would have to bring my sister to practice as well, and she would just sit on the side and watch. If I need a wrestling partner of mine wasn't there, she would jump in, she'd wrestle a little bit. And I remember this one dual tournament, we were missing out on a kid was sick and we didn't have that weight class. And they're like, oh, we don't know what to do. And then my dad was like, throw Virginia in there, see how she does. And she actually ended up pinning the guy. So after there, it was like, oh, well, now we're hooked.
So she's a good wrestler. I mean, I've been hearing in the hallways talking to town is that your sister would actually beat you in a wrestling match. Is this true?
Okay, she's a good wrestler, I'll admit. So she's been on a few world teams. She's won the Pan Ams out in Mexico and Chile. She's been to Russia, Sweden. So she's been around wrestling.
She's global.
Yeah, she's legit. She goes to King University now in Tennessee for wrestling. But at the same time, it is the size of the fight and the dog, but sometimes, the size of the dog in the fight also takes a little advantage. She's about 130 pounds, so I got a little bit of weight on her. Okay. So I think that might play a little bit into a wrestling match.
Yeah, but you said earlier she definitely contributed to your love for wrestling during your youth. Oh,
totally. Like I said, we would travel the country together. I mean, we'd be on the same dual teams. We would, like I said, we were training partners for a majority of it. We still, if we're lucky enough, we'll hit the weight room together when we see each other. So. Even though, we're spaced out pretty well, if we can still help each other in wrestling, weightlifting, or whatever, it still contributes to, my love for wrestling. The sport was, first off, enjoying it with my sister and being able to go around the country wrestling different tournaments and traveling with her.
Yeah, so you definitely looked up to your family and your wrestling outlook of things, but do you have a role model who is a professional wrestler or like a college wrestler?
I do. I would actually say that one of those would be my first coach, is Coach Brown. He definitely, ignited that spark, of love for wrestling, and he made it so, I've learned to love it, really. He always taught us, be the bulldog in the fight. He said, I'd rather be a dump truck in a fight than a Ferrari. Yeah. So he was always, nose to the grindstone, keep on working, keep on pushing. It's a game of chess, not checkers, what he always said.
That's true. And I remember you were my wrestling partner for a couple of practices last year, and those were the most challenging practices it was just, that was a grind. But
it's fun, man.
It was fun, all good times, great memories come from it. So, you got role models in your athletic things, but do you have a role model, like locally here at Benedictine, somebody who's guided you and somebody you look up to in your 4 years at Benedictine? Who has been your biggest supporter or role model or somebody who's contributed to your
I would
success?
say one of the first role models I had, one of the cadets actually, is your big brother, Stas. So
really?
He was my company commander in Charlie Company, and I remember always just looking up to him, the way he carried himself and the way he acted. I was always like, I'm glad to have him as a leader, and I really look up to him. Yeah. And I'd say now, I think one of the biggest role models at Benedictine, another one of the cadets is Jackson Hall. He's been a great role model. He's a, phenomenal guy. He's, carries himself very well.
And a great leader on the football team.
Oh, great, great leader on the football team. Congrats on state championships, y'all. I know that was a big two-time back-to-back. But no, Jackson Hall's been a great one. Like I say, he's a great guy. He leads the team well, just carries himself well where he has that leadership aspect to him. Yeah. And then I would say outside Benedictine, while I've been here, of course, number one, has definitely been my dad. He's been one of those guys who's always been very grateful, is very humble, but he's also just a very nice guy who's, smile on someone else's face is bigger than his own. And that's what makes him the happiest. So, anytime he can make someone else happy or do something for someone else, he likes to do that. And I think that's the way that we should all, go about things is, to humble ourselves, not to be selfish, but to give. And that's what God calls us to do is, to give to others and not be selfish and, humble yourself before others,
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, and you're saying you looked up to, my brother as a little freshman looking up to these big seniors. Do you think, or how do you carry yourself now knowing that the freshmen today are looking up to you as you did to your seniors?
It's actually an odd feeling, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Like I said, to put myself, back in my freshman shoes at 113 pounds, looking up to your brother who's, high 200s, big guy. Yeah. It's very, it's odd to feel like these guys are looking up to me. It changes the way you look at others, and especially yourself. You're knowing that you have a big influence on them. You are leading these guys to be the new generation and men of Benedictine. Yeah. And so it's it has a little weight on your shoulders, having that responsibility. But I think that I know what I'm doing, if it's right, that it'll be okay, and I can, sleep well at night knowing that I'm, building these guys to be good cadets, and it's really an awesome thing to feel.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm proud of and very surprised that all of them made it through orientation finale. They've been great. They really put in the work, and I'm glad to see that they persevered through it. And like I said, it makes me happy to see that.
So, your duty and responsibility as a senior is to carry on the legacy and tradition for the rest of the Corps. What has been your favorite tradition here at Benedictine?
That's a good question. There's obviously lots of traditions and legacies going on. I would say my favorite throughout the years has always been Halloween. I thought that was always very, it was fun, obviously a little messy, but Halloween has always been my favorite one. Unfortunately we weren't able to perform that this year. We had some difficulties getting around it just with previous years, getting out of hand a little bit. But that's been a great one. I always thought it was a good way for us all to bond and have a fun time.
Yeah.
I would say, the one that's continued though is in orientation. I think that's something that's good to help build young men.
Spinning the plate, the beginning of orientation.
Spinning the plate, man.
I bet when you graduate, the special feeling of spinning the plate again is definitely something.
It's kind of like a bittersweet looking forward to that.
Yeah. So Lane, I understand, you love hunting, spending time outdoors, hanging out with friends, camping, spending time in nature. You grew up in Shenandoah, so I feel like that's something that was very natural, out there, living in the woods, hunting. Can you relate the game, or what's your favorite hunting species, hunting style?
My favorite? That's a good question. I've got into waterfowl a little bit, being here in Richmond. I love
waterfowl.
Yeah, it's not a huge thing out where I'm from. I've started to do a little bit over there, but I would say my favorite overall it's got to be dove hunting. I mean, I love it. I'll bring out my fellow cadet, Zavi Lugo, who's also a senior, company commander of band company. We'll go out and we'll dove hunt. We'll have a speaker actually out when we're hunting. He brings his dogs out. We'll grill lunch during the evening and stuff. So we always have fun time with that. Like I say, you can kind of socialize as well as hunting, and it's always nice hearing a few birds here and there too. So I think that's been my favorite style of hunting, just from hunting the birds and socializing with everybody. So
yeah, and do you like it better back at home, or is it better in Richmond, or?
Well, being here in Richmond, especially with the BSOR Hunt and Conservation Club, I've been able to do lots of different stuff I never thought I'd do.
Yeah.
I did my first waterfowl hunts with Benedictine. I did some goose hunts out in Delaware for snow geese.
Yeah, we go everywhere.
I've been out to Montana for a week fly fishing with them. So, and actually this Friday we're heading out to Esquataba out there in Covington, Virginia, near West Virginia. Doing some fly fishing out there, so it's definitely brought up a lot of opportunities for me to experience things I've never done before, and I'm very blessed with that. So, and we always do our annual hunt and gather, which is always a fun time. You get to socialize with people, you get to have fun time. You do a hunt in the evening, and that's the way we'll raise money for the club, and to be able to do all these amazing trips I've been able to go on. And it's a way, to also bring the younger generation into hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
And also the conservation part. We want to preserve what we're able to, use. Yeah. And that's one thing I've always, been very passionate about, especially in being here in Richmond with this club. So I couldn't be grateful enough for the club as well.
Definitely. And you get to learn how to hunt, fish, and do all these things, but once again, you're with your brothers, you're with your cadets, It's another bonding experience, one that you can't take for granted, and something that you'll look back on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, we're with our friends out there. We get to see some of our teachers out, outside of school, which is a totally different experience, and it's, it's something fun to experience. And I think it's very good for you to, experience, once in your life, getting out there, being outdoors in nature, camping under stars in Montana. I mean, it's something that, I'll never forget and no one can take away from me.
And so I know Mr. Kaplan is a part of the Hunting Conservation Club. He's been my favorite teacher. I only had him 1 year, freshman year, 9th grade English, but he's my favorite teacher. He's part of the Hunt and Gather Club. Do you have somebody who's been your favorite teacher throughout your 4 years at Benedictine?
That's a hard question. I mean, there's obviously a lot of good teachers here. I always liked, he's unfortunately not here anymore. Mr. Moore's been a good one. Coach Green's always been a good one. We always talk about wrestling in class. I would say Kaplan, though, he's definitely in that top three. All three of them, I can't really pick a favorite, to be honest.
So to close out, do you have anyone you want to thank personally here?
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely, all the teachers, Mr. Smith, Mr. Kaplan, Mr. Grapes, Mr. Lilly. Thank you all for letting us do this. And thank you also, Mr. Folds and Mrs. Folds, Mr. Lugo, Mrs. Lugo. Thank you all as well for having me here. You. I really appreciate the Yost family. I appreciate y'all having me. I couldn't do any of this without y'all. I just want to say thank you.
Yep, so thanks for joining us today on the first episode of Behind the Sabre. We were here with Lane Ford.
Appreciate you.
And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you.